Welcome to Chapter 4. We're so excited to be here again today, and we love doing these videos for you. But today I'd like to introduce our classes to Miss Tickle here. She's our new teacher, taking Mr. Green's spot. Say welcome, guys. Wave at Miss Tickle. Tell her welcome. Be nice to her when you see her in the hall. Help her out. Let her know things. Introduce yourself. She'll want to know who you are. And we'd also like to introduce you to Mr. Potato Head. Because we are in Mesopotamia, he's going to help us with vocabulary through this whole thing. So he's ready to help us with vocabulary. Sit back, take good notes, and we will see you in the class.
All right, one more thing, guys. For this chapter, it's important for us to know that the Sumerians, which is a group of people that lived in Mesopotamia, made really important advances in areas such as farming and writing that laid the foundation for future cultures. So you're going to see a lot of connections to things that we use and deal with today. So hang on tight and you'll learn more.
All right, guys, so now that we've gone over the map and we've gotten to know the geography of Mesopotamia, if you haven't already done so, let's take a look at our hot question. Remember, this is our higher order thinking question. So it says, why might the earliest settlers in Mesopotamia have decided to settle in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers? This is called the Tigris and Euphrates Valley. Predict 2 benefits, or pros, and 2 drawbacks, or negatives, to settling in such an area. Okay, so take about 5 minutes to think about that and respond.
There are 2 very important geographic terms that we need to know with this unit. The Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and the Euphrates River.
And that's this area right here. Okay, and the word meso means between. So on your notes, underline that part meso and write between right above it.
The Fertile Crescent is a curving strip of fertile land from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf.
So that's what we see down here. And you can always remember that the crescent is the one shaped like a C. So we have the larger area of the crescent along this path. And this is all of this fertile land along these 2 rivers. But Mesopotamia is a smaller region, just right between here. And you can always remember that the Tigris is the river on top, because top starts with a T, and the Euphrates is the river underneath, because it's under, the Euphrates is under.
Hi guys, welcome back. So Miss Tickle has just shared with you that we will be discussing Mesopotamia. Now what I want to talk about is the people that lived in this specific place, or what's known as a dweller. Okay, so archaeologists around the 1800s started to dig up this area and discovered artifacts and fossils in this ancient area. Okay, and so what they believed is that people first settled in Mesopotamia around 7000 BC. And so you'll see on your map that this area here is what we consider Mesopotamia. Now, around 4000 BC, remember this is archaeologists guessing or inferring based on what they found, they believe that some groups began building farming villages in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. So that valley is going to be between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Now, think about that. Why would they want to settle in between those 2 rivers? Okay. And then around 3000 BC, archaeologists believe that civilizations developed in Sumer. Sumer is considered southern Mesopotamia.
The thing we know about water from our own experience is that it can be incredibly unpredictable. And this is a problem that we faced most recently with the hurricane. We saw all sorts of flooding in some areas, and in other areas, nothing at all. Well, the ancient Mesopotamians had to deal with really similar problems, especially because they relied on their rivers for their farming. So sometimes the soil was incredibly dry. Other times the flooding was very, very severe, and it all depended on the season, how much snow they got in the winter, and all sorts of things. So put your finger on the chart that says unpredictable water sources, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the Mesopotamians dealt with their geography that they were handed. So in the summertime, there was little or no rain. It was the dry season. So the rivers fell very low, and the farmers didn't have enough water to plant the crops in the fall. So you had not a surplus, but the opposite of a surplus. You had something called a drought, where there just wasn't enough water to go around. Now, the opposite problem happened a lot in the springtime, where you had rains and melting snow from the northern mountains that caused the rivers to overflow. And the thing about this is you couldn't plan for it. You could tell the season, but when these rivers overflowed, that there would be these unexpected and really violent floods that would not only destroy property and loss of life, but it could destroy the crops, any crops that would be in the grounds. So the farmers in ancient Mesopotamia had to figure out a solution to balance these two problems of too little water and too much water. One of the ways that they did that was by looking at some of the benefits of the floods and thinking, well, there are some upsides. For example, the floods brought silt or fertile soil. So I have my little buddy here, so I know that word silt is an important vocabulary term. That silt helps make the soil fertile and good for growing crops. And when the floodwaters washed that down, they left it behind when the water went away. So the people needed this silt, but there had to be a way to control it. So people in Mesopotamia began to build dams to control seasonal floods, building up mud brick walls to protect their homes, and canals to let water flow to their fields. This method of controlling the water, either bringing it back or holding it back or bringing it to you, is called irrigation.
All right, guys, so we've talked about geography and we've talked about silt and we've talked about the importance of farming over and over and over. And so hopefully you're getting the idea that now that we have farming, we're able to explore other avenues and do other things now that we have plenty of food. And so first we can see that silt let us have a surplus. Now I want to bring Mr. Potato Head back. It's a vocabulary word for surplus. That means that you have more food than you need. If we have a surplus, there's plus too much. We've got a bunch. We have more than we need. And when you have more food than you need, it allows some other things to happen. And a surplus will lead to not as many people needed to farm. And so with farming techniques getting more advanced, that allowed artisans or skilled workers to develop. And if you have an artisan or a skilled worker, that means that they specialize in one particular job. And that allows jobs to make innovations, make improvements, get better and better, and that will lead to people begin to live together in places that help them trade. When you have too much food and you're able to chase other dreams and make other things, then you have goods so that you can trade with other farming villages around. And so by the year 3000 BC, several little cities have popped up all over in Samaria and Sumer in this area in southern Mesopotamia, and they are able to trade with one another. So we had two vocabulary words that popped up on this video. We had surplus. Mr. Potato Head told us that that's way too much food. And then also artisans. An artisan is a person who can specialize in making clothing or pottery or weaving, and we see all of that down there at the bottom in all of our pictures. You can see this picture right here shows us advanced farming techniques, and they're getting better and better at farming, which leads us to be able to have potteries. Other people can make other goods that are needed for life to be easier, and that leads us to a civilization where you can have many people doing many different jobs, living together in an area, and it meets all the criteria that we talked about in Chapter 2 in order to have, or Chapter 3, all the criteria that we need to have a civilization. You have religion, you have skilled workers, arts and writing, and then you have governments and cities. And then we're going to talk about social hierarchy that's going to come onto the scene in just a little bit. So make sure all your hot questions are filled out. Make sure you have everything completed on your notes. If you want full credit, remember, give some good thoughts to that hot question, because that's what makes you think about it and make connections to make all this make sense. So we'll talk about it in class. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your effort. Remember, we love you guys, and we're glad that you're doing your job, and we're so pleased at how things are working out. So congratulations, and we will see you in class. Bye.